So hello to my second presentation, like second time I'm doing this at CitrusCon, not the same topic. Um, yes. Also, yeah, we have Indiegogo, so please support. So the topic is the reality and challenges of the LGBT community in Japan. I will give you a short introduction to the history of the homosexuality in Japan, and now how it looks compared to, for example, the 20th century. And then we will go over some examples of anime and manga that I particularly enjoy. It's not going to be like, this is the only good option or good manga you have to read. This is my own opinion. So this is what I recommend if you want to read something related to those topics. So let's see if it works. So first question, are you what they call gay? That's the question for you guys. So I hope some of you are. I particularly am pansexual, so I categorize myself as part of the LGBT plus community. So going into the history, homosexuality before the Western influence wasn't seen as something unacceptable. As long as you had children in some way, it was seen as something that might happen. I also want to check if the slideshow works. Yes, it is. Okay. So for some people, it was just seen as something to do. Unfortunately, most of the history when it comes to homosexuality in Japan is not nice. There was a whole kind of category of nanshoku, which was a relationship between young men and their masters. Usually they were priests or samurai, and they could choose to then, when they turned 18, or it wasn't 18, when they reached adulthood, that they could decide either to become a man or to stay as young boy and still be in that relationship. So unfortunately, it was seen as normal for younger men to be in a relationship with older men, and kind of for poorer families, for example, it was also something that they could do to send their own sons to like masters and be like, yes, you got to be taken care of. We don't have to worry about you, and you can get like a job after that related to this. There are some examples of diaries from even earlier than Meiji Restoration, so like 19th century. For example, Fujiwara no Yorinaga, who lived in 12th century. He was part of the court, and he actually in his notes said that he wants to have physical relationship with men, and I think it was actually proven that he had several relationships with other men, physical and not. So even people who were part of inner court, so they were close to emperors, they still had the, let's say, not privilege, but they had the right to have male partners, and nobody saw it as something that was unacceptable. Another one, which was even it was later, there was an author, Ihara Saikaku, who created kind of like an encyclopedia of my love. And unfortunately, it was very misogynistic. The 8 chapters were split into like kind of 4 and 4, so some of them were for male connoisseurs, as he called them. So people who basically only loved men, and some other chapters were focused on men who hated women. That's why they preferred men. So one of the translators actually, like the way he translated it, some women who read it were offended by how they were perceived. But that's how it was back then. Unfortunately, women, when it comes to any like lesbian relationship, it was documented, but not as much as male. because as long as you gave birth to children, like they don't really cared too much about what the women were doing. And of course, then the major restoration happened, which was forced by one particular country, USA. And with that, they brought a lot of their own kind of laws, but also culture and traditions and Christianity. So they were like the Japanese government was very influenced by the foreigners. And in 1872, they decided to criminalize homosexuality, um, mostly because it seems like the thing to do to allow the foreigners to feel more welcome, that they are not going to be kind of accosted by men, as they, I think, thought that it would kind of make foreigners more welcome, that we are the same, look, we follow your own laws. But it didn't last long, it only lasted 8 years, and one of the people who we have to thank to is Gustav Bouswanade. Uh, well, he worked with two other Japanese men to decriminalize homosexuality because he was French, and in France it wasn't criminalized. So he said to them that they should follow the French law, which doesn't allows males to have sex with each other. You would think that, oh yeah, that's a great person, but from what I read about him, he said that you shouldn't criminalize also bestiality and incest in the same sentence as saying that we shouldn't criminalize homosexuality. So we cannot have nice things, unfortunately. There's a lot of when you look at articles, there's also a lot of mentions of other incidents that kind of led to this criminalization, and one of them, which when you think about it sounds weird, is that there were gangs of Bishonen men who wanted to kind of R-word other Bishonen men and kind of make them gay. And yeah, so there were gang wars between Bishonen young men who were running around the streets and accosting other pretty boys. And when I read about it, I was like, that cannot be true. But there were two sources that said it, and one of them was actually like written by Japanese women. So I was like, okay, so that did happen. So that also led to criminalization, because people were basically attacking other young men on the streets. When it comes to the 20th century, there were magazines started by young women. Usually it was more of feminist movement, but during that they also kind of worked with lesbians. One of the first kind of like feminist magazines, one of the, like, let's say owners, or one of the people who established the magazine, dressed in male clothing, mostly because women kind of during the earliest 20th century, men were asked, or like maybe not asked, but kind of like they said that men should dress like the foreigners, so wear suits, wear pants, not kimonos, but women should stay as purely Japanese as possible, so wear kimonos and yukatas. And then the feminist movement kind of said, no, we will wear hakama, that split dress, so it looks like pants, and we don't really care what you want us to do. We will wear what we want. And that magazine was kind of like called Blue Stockings, or the group was called Blue Stockings, mostly because of the stockings that they were wearing. And also during that time you could kind of see the change that people started now, because of the Western influence, kind of look down upon relationship where between the same sex people. So they started to focus more on how you should give birth to children, so we really care now about who you are with. And so like the people who created that magazine, their life was kind of dragged open into the like public, just to kind of ridicule them and say, look at her, she's wearing my male clothing, she's trying to, you know, trick, and kind of fear mongering, which even now people still do if they don't agree with people's choices. But it's getting better. It's not, when it comes to Japan, it's not the best, but it is getting better. Going back to now, what's happening? Recently, there's been like a lot more systems, like a lot of more governments, when they kind of recognize and give people ability to have a partnership. So in the data is usually from last year. So for example, last year or this year, people like a couple from Nagasaki, from Omura, became the first same-sex couple to be registered as partners living together. Basically, in Japan, when you move, you have to go to your town hall and register your new address in order to have it on your old documents. And they became the first couple, a same-sex couple, to be registered as partners. I believe they said it's like marriage, but it's not recognized. But they still are categorized as a couple, because other couples had to register as housemates or flatmates or roommates, basically that they didn't have the same kind of rights, or that you basically categorize them as you're just friends living together. Nothing romantic between you. Also, as you can see, when it comes to number of couples who were registered by May 31st, 2023, was 5,171. And you can see where they are spread. Of course, a lot of are around Tokyo, but a lot of also in Kyushu, in Fukuoka. So the kind of like bottom left island. And also when it comes to local governments, it's 328 who recognize LGBT partnership. But you can see when it comes to the population coverage is 70%. So even though you see, oh, that's so little, but because most of them are in huge cities, they cover a lot of the population. It's still not like fully recognized that you can get married. People are working on it. They're trying to fight it. Recently, there's been a lot of court decisions that are leading people to believe that it might change in the future. But until it does, we kind of are still hoping it will. But we will see. Maybe something will be done, because people are supporting it. And when it comes to people supporting, but also people actually doing something, so there were two articles that I found this year. One of them was about lesbian couple in Japan who face discrimination in maternity care, and one that shocked me because it doesn't have very good kind of connections with this. Because Japanese couple, lesbians, won political asylum in Canada. And to get political asylum, Canada basically said that Japan is not safe for them to live there. So it basically, you think, oh, we can get, like there we are closing to get like to have like gay marriage recognized in Japan, and then you think, wait, but Canada said that it's not safe because they actually gave political asylum to a couple, a lesbian couple, a same-sex couple from Japan. So it's kind of like one step forward, but I would say 10 or even 15 steps back. When it comes to how many people support it, as you can see, maybe if you cannot read Japanese, but it's getting better. Basically, kind of like the higher percentages are basically saying that yes, they supported, less people are not, so maybe it will do something. When it comes to the first article about lesbian couple facing discrimination in maternity care, basically what happened was that they went with IVF and decided that they want to have a child, so they went to the clinic. One of them was pregnant, and they went to the hospital. And the hospital said, okay, and who's the father? So they said, oh, we did IVF and everything. And the hospital said, okay, but we need to know who he is. And they said, we don't know because it was an anonymous donor, so we can learn, but we don't wish to do it now. And basically the hospital created problems for them, saying that we cannot allow you to, like, we cannot be sued, like we don't want to be sued by the father if anything happens, if there are any complications, so you have to go somewhere else. So they went to another hospital, which is horrible because it's very hard to switch hospitals in Japan, and they had the same problem. And they were like, okay, but we have to give birth somewhere. I know that in the end they didn't manage to find a hospital, but that the problem is that one of the first hospital they went to created a problem based on this imaginary like situation that they thought about, that what if something happens and the father sues. But the father is not in the picture. They are a couple. He's an anonymous donor. Like, why create this problem? So unfortunately, it's not looking good when it comes to creating a family in Japan, when it comes to same-sex couples. Another thing that I have to mention when it comes to LGBT community in Japan is the issue of changing your sex in Japan. So Article 3 in the Act on Special Cases in Handling Gender Status for Persons with Gender Identity Disorder. So basically, a family court may make a ruling of a change of the recognition of the gender status of a person with gender identity disorder who falls under all of the following criteria. So all of the criteria has to be met. They are at least 18 years old, they are unmarried, they have no minor child, they are sterilized, they have a body with parts that resemble the genital organs of their identified gender. And last year, the fourth requirement is no longer necessary. So, guys, last year it was changed. You no longer have to be sterilized. That's it. All the other things you have to do. So they have to be 18. So you cannot change your sex until you are 18. Okay, that's like, okay, I guess that's like the bare minimum. But you have to be unmarried. Why you have to be unmarried? Because same-sex marriages are not recognized. So if you have a partner and you are married, you have to divorce if you want to change your sex or gender, because they don't allow same-sex marriages. Of course, you may be divorced already, you might not have a partner, but if you have a child who's under age of 18, you are also not allowed to change your sex. I think they believe that it will be too confusing for a child, or that it's to protect the child. But I don't think if the child knows, I think the child knows before the parent wants to change their sex, that they kind of are told. I assume, a lot of assuming on my part, but I assume the parents tell them before they do anything. Number 4 is done, we no longer have to do that. But the last part. Recently, one person was allowed to change their gender on their identity card without having the operation. I would have to check, but I'm not sure if it was an exception or they are planning this year, or they did it this year, that you no longer have to do it. But last year it was still necessary for you to have gender affirming surgery. Basically, you had to. Basically, it went kind of with number 4, because when you have that surgery, you are automatically sterilized. So basically, you had to go and have that operation. Another fact about this is that the act is called Special Cases in Handling Gender Status for Person with Gender Identity Disorder. So before all of this, before you to take any steps, you have to actually be diagnosed with gender identity disorder by a psychiatrist. So it's not enough if you even meet these requirements. First of all, you have to be diagnosed with gender identity disorder. So that is still a requirement. So they have to kind of prove that you will not change your mind, basically, that you do still have it, you have gender dysphoria. Basically, you just have to prove to the doctor that it's not just a phase. Which, depending on the doctor, I think it might be more difficult than people realize. When it comes to mental health care in Japan, it's not the best. So this issue is still ongoing. I hope it changes in the future. Maybe it will, but it's when I was preparing this presentation for June, for another event, I was really shocked that the only thing that was changed was the 4th requirement. And I still hope maybe in the future, in the nearest future, it will change for the best, and it will get rid of all the rules or all the requirements. Going now into examples of what I would say are some of the manga that I enjoy, that show more realistic, or maybe not even realistic, but just an example of like either experiences that connect with me or connect like with the Japanese experience of LGBT community. Some of them are autobiographical, so they of course show the true situations that happen in Japan. First one is My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagata Kabi, who basically, the chapter starts with her in a hotel because she hired a lesbian escort, because as she said, she was 20, I think 6 or 7, around like late 20s, never had any sexual relationships, and she just wanted to experience one, so she hired a escort from a lesbian agency to experience this. This is basically the cover of the manga is basically the way you start. So you start with her and the escort kind of in the hotel, and her kind of like telling you that this is what she experiences. This also deals with depression and self-hate. And as you read this, you realize that it's mostly to do with her mom. Like, for example, this is one of the pages from the 26, so it's very till beginning, so no spoilers. But she finds a job, is super happy, but it's a part-time job, because in Japan, if you work part-time, you are not seen as a real worker. So basically, she's like, look, I have a normal life, I have a job. And her mom says, oh, but it's just a part-time job. You're not a proper salaried employee, are you? So basically, she's proud. She wants to be like loved by her mom. She wants to experience kind of like somebody being proud of her. And she immediately gets kind of like cut off from happiness. Like, you don't deserve to be proud. It's just a part-time job. What are you happy about? It's not for everyone, I would say, this manga. If you want to kind of have a good cry about somebody else's situation, kind of connect, I would say this is a good manga for that, because you feel some hope when you read this, and you kind of want, like, you want her to get better, you want her to experience happiness, you want her to realize that she has self-worth. But looking at the next titles that she created, because this manga was a huge hit, she created the next volumes, which had My Soul Exchange Diary, which was basically her learning how to love herself. Then we have My Alcoholic Escape from Reality, and then you realize, oh, she still has some work to do, and My Wandering Warrior Existence, and her last one, which was titled My Pancreas Broke, but My Life Got Better, which I still have to read. So, as you can see, she wrote many others, and all of them are about her experience. So, there's some hope. Her life got better. So I think, like, this for me is like the best of both worlds. So you have a manga format, the illustrations are great, but you also can read about the experience of somebody who is still discovering herself, still kind of second guessing her life, her sexuality, how to do everything on her own, how to move away from toxic family members. So for me, this kind of is the realistic part of living as a lesbian in Japan, is that your family might not accept you, you might even not come out. Not everything is kind of great. You might have trouble finding jobs. You might have depression. For me, that's like an example of a manga that I love to find, because it gives me like kind of opportunity to look into somebody else's life and see how my kind of problems compare to other people's problems, and kind of either make me feel better about what I am going through, or kind of like give me ideas how to make my life better. So for me, that's one of the greatest examples of that. Another one, which is more cute than the last one, or more wholesome. So this is a story of an older woman whose husband dies, and she goes to the city center, to the shopping district, and goes by a makeup store, and she sees a pretty older woman, and immediately has a gay panic. Basically, she's like, she's so pretty. What can I do? How can I go talk to her? Can I go talk to her? Basically, she realizes that her husband, like the death of her husband, is not the end of her life, that she might still kind of figure out what she wants in her life. And for me, this is like very like feel good manga, because Hana Monogatari is basically kind of about two older women kind of getting to know each other. Hana, the main character, kind of figuring out that maybe I am a lesbian, maybe I was just like kind of put into a box that my parents kind of made me get married. I didn't have kind of a choice or like a chance to explore my sexuality. And this is like the manga version of, instead of like old men Yao, you have old women Yuri. And the worst part about this is that it only has 3 volumes, but it's not because the author wanted to finish so early. No, because basically nobody kind of picked it up. Like even her editor or her team that was supposed to kind of, promote it on social media kind of gave up on it. She tried to do it on Twitter. She tried very hard to promote it. I think it's getting translation into Spanish, I hope maybe sometime soon it will be in Polish, so I could buy it and support it. But in the end, for me, it's kind of this manga like feels good because it kind of tells me that you can never be too old to realize who you really are, and it's not like there's a deadline. You might think that you have to know super early, but when you read this manga, you realize that no, you have time. You don't have to rush, and seeing how the relationship progresses, it's also amazing. Like to me, because I only read the first volume because it was available fully in English, and I bought it, and the rest of it were in Japanese, and I didn't have enough money to buy all of the chapters like separately. For me, it was like very cute, and like it made me feel good, because finding out that you are lesbian after being like married and your husband dying, and kind of seeing how she starts to kind of like brighten up, not with the makeup, but just because being next to a person who is trying to like show you how beautiful you can look. It was, for me, it was like very like heartwarming, and I hope they release the last two volumes in English, unless they did, and I kind of didn't find it. But we'll move on because I can talk about this short long. So this one is actually like super kind of, I would say, independent, like indie. I found this on Kickstarter, which is amazing. So this is My Date is a Total Ike Woman, so a handsome woman, and it's batch for batch manga presented by Natsuo Mutsumi, who is the creator of this manga and the artist behind it. So basically, it's the one-shot manga, like one volume, about two batch women who are going on a date. And basically, they are both kind of like, oh my god, she's too hot for me. Oh my god, she's too handsome for me. So it's the stereotypical like useless lesbians who don't realize that they are both good for each other. And this is like great. I put the prices in Polish because I forgot to change it. But I think it's better for US because 500 yen is like, I would say, less than $4 maybe. But the author is actually kind of put like other works on Kickstarter. So, for example, another one was an Yuri anthology, and she creates a lot of them, and you can actually get amazing bonuses when you support them on Kickstarter. And yeah, and one other extra great thing is that she herself is a lesbian, and she has a partner. She is asexual, but she like still thinks of herself as a lesbian. And I hope I didn't misgender them, but I think I remember they use they, them, and she, her when it comes to English. But if you ever want to kind of support her, she or they puts a lot of works on Kickstarter. So if you want like a new manga that people like will be translated into English, I welcome you to kind of see her. I will later put a link to her Twitter, because she posts a lot of like other manga. That's why I found a lot of Yuri projects on Kickstarter thanks to them. So yeah, and now switching to the G and in LGBT. It's of course the grandfather, the the person who I think most people are familiar with, and his manga, My Brother's Husband, who are most people are familiar with, because if you know him from other manga, then you know that it's very unusual for him to have a wholesome manga. He's actually a creator of a G-Man magazine that ran from 1995 to 2016, which is more kind of what he used to create than My Brother's Husband. I remember when I found this manga, I found it first online, then I realized that it actually got translated into Polish. But the thing that made me kind of go, what is this manga going to be about, was when I saw the author's name. So Gengoro Tagame, I was familiar with his other work, and I was like, oh, I wasn't I don't want to assume, but is it the correct author? Like, did somebody make a mistake? No. Oh, okay. So I recognize the style. The manga is amazing. It was so good that they actually made a live action about it, which is amazing. To like kind of give you a synopsis of what the manga is about a man who lives with his younger daughter, with his young daughter, sorry, and he gets a visit from a foreigner, and he's surprised. Okay, who is this? And he gets introduced that it's his brother's husband. So the title, and from what I remember, there are four volumes, and basically because his brother died, he kind of gets to know his brother through his brother's husband. So kind of he sees how his daughter learns about homosexuality, how it's not seen as wrong, and it's a very beautiful story. But because the man starts to realize that because he rejected his brother, he lost, because he's lost his experiences, his moments, his chance to kind of, you know, get to know his brother because of his rejection. So he learns basically what is and what isn't, like being gay is or isn't. So for me, this is like one of, like, it's even in Poland it's popular, like among like the manga that we get translated when it comes to this topic. So you can see that I hope this manga kind of brings people brings people attention to the idea that you have, like, you will lose if you don't accept your family members. You will only lose. There's no winning in hate. And another manga, which is kind of not similar, but it's connected with acceptance and people seeing you for who you are, is this true story of Ryosuke Nanasaki, which is titled Until I Met My Husband, and it has both a novel version and manga version. So who prefers to read and who prefers to read manga, and who prefers to I cannot speak suddenly. Who prefers to read longer novels? I bought the manga version because I didn't realize there was a novel version first. But the story is great because you can see how in rural parts of Japan, how it's perceived to be, like, other people try to kind of put you in the box. There's one moment in the manga when the main character, but like the true story. So like that Ryosuke is asked, "Are you not half a girl?" So don't you feel like you are a half a girl because you like, so you want to be a girl? And he says, no, I don't want to be a girl. So they decide, oh, you must be half a girl then. So it's being treated as kind of like not a phase, but something that it's weird and unusual about people. Throughout the story, you meet many characters. You meet his like high school crush. That it's very weird because like his high school crush gets a girlfriend. And then you think, okay, they kind of are going to fizzle out. They won't meet each other. But no, they actually are roommates in college. So it's kind of creates this very kind of tense atmosphere in his life. But one of the things that I also enjoy is that it tells you how in the early 90s, early 2000s, how the LGBT community kind of behaved in Japan. So they had forums, they had meetups, and it was mostly meetups were mostly created to meet other gay men. And it's kind of when you read the manga and when you see the panels about how he meets like his first kind of proper boyfriend, and then you see that he hides him, that his friends don't know about them, when it's opposite for him. So people know in his life, well, his friends, he hasn't told his family yet, but he's out to some of his friends, that it's kind of like you kind of hope that it's not the husband in the title. And then his friends throw them a marriage ceremony in a cafe that they go to. And you think, oh, it is, but he hides them. And then they break up and you think like, oof, I'm happy, but also I'm sad for him, but I'm happy that this person who kind of makes him feel like not unwelcome with his friends, but kind of like a dirty secret, that it didn't kind of ended up well for them. So you kind of are hopeful that maybe his next partner will be better, and he is. And one of the funniest coincidence in this whole story is that they both share the same name. So both of them are called Ryosuke. So for me, it's kind of amazing that Ryosuke and Ryosuke are together, and they had a marriage ceremony in 2015, which is, as the title on the book says, the first religiously recognized same-sex marriage in Japan. So it's not recognized by the courts, but by the religion, by Shinto. Also, you can see like their marriage ceremony kind of panels, which looks amazing. They are surrounded by family and friends. I will not spoil how their family reacts to the announcement. You can go read it on your own. But for me, it's great to see that more gay men want to share their experience about how they are on their journey to get this kind of same-sex marriage recognized, and how they are fighting to get that recognition. Another one, which is for me amazing, is manga called I Think Our Son is Gay by Okura. And the author is also gay. He came out to his mom between the first and second volume out of the 5 that were released. It is completed, the manga, and the whole kind of point of view is from the point of view of the mother of the Hiroki. So basically, every kind of chapter ends or starts, I think our son is gay, but that's okay, or I think our son is gay. And I love when he gets frustrated, when he gets like, he's like blushing because he sometimes says, I will never have a girlfriend, or sometimes like he will say, when I have my boyfriend, so he slips. So it's kind of like throughout the whole manga, you kind of like, okay, but is he, or does just she think he is? And this is like one of the greatest panels. Is our son is probably gay. That's all. He's part of our precious family. So it's very like wholesome, and his mother is super supportive. And when his crush comes home, like comes with him to study together, she's like, oh, that's the boy he likes. Or when they watch like baseball or any TV and he sees like muscled men, they both gush about it, and she tries to kind of like say that it's okay. But there's one problem in this, is that the father says, for example, well, no matter how entertaining they say this about a TV program about gay men, seeing two guys kiss and stuff is pretty gross, isn't it? Thankfully, the mom is like, you should watch it, because two reasons: it will give you something new to talk about your young coworkers, plus you might change your mind about romance between two men being gross. So what I love is that the mangaka decided, no, the father might say some homophobic things, but the mom is still going to be protective. Mom is still going to be like, no, I know you're my husband, but you cannot be homophobic, especially if our son is gay. It's like, you shouldn't be homophobic, period, but especially if your son is gay. Like, if our son is gay, like, you should try to be, well, you should try, but you should be uh, accepting. And throughout every time there's any mention of him saying something like, this is gross, or there is one moment when he says that, oh, look, this model married another woman, this is amazing, and she's like, oh, so you are accepting. Oh, but it's different between two women and two men. And she has to kind of like try to teach him, like, no, you should rethink. And one of the greatest part is that in her job, she actually has a gay coworker. And you can see that there are two of her coworkers who are women, and one of them is really into boys' love. And at first you like, oh, please don't be like a stereotypical fujoshi in a manga portrayed in a very bad light. So she starts like that, but throughout the series, she also kind of realizes, oh, it's not the same. It's manga and real life are not the same. Not all of BLs are going to be as real as the others. And one of the things that at first kind of shocked me was that one of her coworkers said, I would prefer that he wasn't gay, that it was just an exception, that he was a hetero, but his partner basically made him change his mind, that he's the exception to the rule because it's more romantic. And you think, okay, what do you mean by that? And basically she says, because if he's just gay, that his relationship is no different than ours. So basically she wanted him not to be gay, that coworker, so it would be more romantic according to her. So this manga kind of shows how differently people might think, and how this mother is trying to like show support to her son. And it's amazing. Like, I read the whole thing. It's really cute, it's really amazing. You sometimes feel stress about the crush of the son, and you feel kind of angry every time the father says something homophobic. But that's, I'm so sorry, got a message. Yeah, so basically it's amazing. I highly recommend this manga if you want to feel good, but also you kind of want to see from the perspective of a gay mangaka how he wants the life to look like for kind of like him, because he said that he came out only after the first manga, the first volume, like, was released. So he wasn't out to his parents, to his mom, before he wrote this. So you kind of can see the difference between the first and second volume, because he writes kind of, the first volume is kind of like wishful thinking, like I wish my mom did this. The second volume is kind of like I wish all the parents did this. And one of the things in the last volume that he mentions is that what he wants from the story is for it to be something that could only been written right now. And in the future, I want people to think this sort of thing. Why he's so desperate to hide his gayness? It's not like it's weird or anything when they read it. So he wants this manga to be kind of only applicable now, but in the future, being gay is not something will be seen as something not abnormal or weird, and that people will basically say, well, why is he trying so hard to not slip up in front of his mom or his parents? Why is he trying to hide that he is gay? So for me, this is basically kind of showing people that everyone wants to be accepted, and seeing his mom being accepting and kind of showing him love no matter what he does. For me, that's really great, and I highly recommend this manga. Another one which is kind of sad is She Likes Gays But Not Me. The manga has 3 volumes, novel has 1 volume. Hirahara Akira was the artist, and the story was by Asahara Noto. And basically, it's about a girl who is a guy who sees his classmate who buys a BL manga, and basically, she's like, "You are a fujoshi, just admit it," and she tries to hide it. And basically, she said that she will never see someone gay in real life, so that's why she loves manga, BL manga. But unfortunately, in his life, he's met people who says being gay is gross, and he is in a very toxic relationship, problematic relationship with an older man who has a son in his age, and it's a very hard manga to read because the author and also the main character say the same thing, that they don't want to be gay. So this manga talks a lot about how the main character wishes to be straight. And the mangaka actually said that he wants to tell the story because not everyone has the same experience. Not everyone is happy with their life. Not every gay person wants to be gay. And unfortunately, he passed away last year, so he couldn't finish his next manga after this one. But basically, his whole blog was about that he is never going to apologize to how this manga ended and how this is portrayed, mostly because he wants to tell his own story, but also story of other people. So I would say that this manga is for people who kind of want to see what self-hate can do to people, but also kind of see other people's perspective on what being gay means to them. And because we have lost time, I'm going to just kind of go over a little bit briefly about the next ones. So Our Dreams at Dusk. This is a great manga, very beautiful manga about a house that people kind of like a drop-in house. And they have people who are gay, who are bisexual, who are asexual, who are non-binary, transgender. It's basically kind of perfect mix of the LGBT community. So I would highly recommend this. And also the author is asexual and X-gender, which is kind of like this agender in Japanese. He says he is not like female to male or male to female. He's basically 2X, just to hide what his gender assigned at birth was. So that's another kind of important aspect. Then The Bride Was a Boy. I forgot to change that the author is trans, but it's written in Polish. The manga is amazing if you want to learn about gender change, because they had to change it. And so The Bride Was a Boy by Chi, and she is great like artist when it comes to how she draws her chibi. And also her husband is also amazing, mostly because she met him when she was still before the surgery. And basically she told him, I was born a boy. He was like, I still want to marry you, I still love you. And it's very, very cute. And you can also have a lot of tidbits, like she puts a lot of like one pages, kind of like little explanations for like rainbow flag or gender sex surgery, gender change surgery. And it's basically very good. And Boys Run the Riot, yeah, it's also great. Mangaka is also trans, and yeah, it's also in Polish. FYI, that's why the Polish flag is there, because I forgot to change it by rushing. And yeah, it's amazing. It's about a boy who really wants to kind of tell everyone, but he's very shy. Not very shy, but kind of like anxious about telling people that he's trans. And together with upperclassmen, they create a clothing line, Boys Run the Riot. And I highly recommend it. I wish I could talk more about it, but we have 3 minutes. So I'm so sorry for speaking too long about other manga. And at 30, I realized I had no gender. Great manga. Basically, this is about a 50-year-old after 2 decades of self-discovery. So I highly recommend it. This is basically, as in his own words, or they own words, this book features me during my midlife crisis. It covers the different changes I went through as I aged and episodes I experienced in life with my partner. Great. You can check out his blog. It's on the right corner, his Twitter and Instagram. He actually followed me when I followed him while researching for my presentation back in June. So yeah, and you can get his manga on Bookwalker, and other website probably too, but I found it on Bookwalker. And the last one I want to mention is about asexuality. There's Is Love the Answer by Uta Isaki, which is a great manga. And it's basically it's very, very important if you are asexual or aromantic, to kind of like find yourself in manga. And I think that's one of the best ones, because this is the person who kind of still is working through it. Like, she knows she doesn't feel any sexual attraction, so she goes to university to kind of learn psychology to find out what's wrong with her, and she finds out through other ace people at that course that there's nothing wrong with her. And it's very, there's not just one asexual person in this manga, there's a whole community. So it's great to see that there's a manga with not just a token asexual person, but it's actually like a group of people who are supporting the main character and telling her it's normal to feel this way. So for me, that was one of the best things. And we have 1 minute, so I'm slowly going to finish, and I want to thank you guys for coming. Oh yeah, and yeah, when it goes to the comments, because I couldn't see the comments, yeah, so the I Want to Be a Wall, yes, it's also a great one. And yeah, and Is Love the Answer is great. They also wrote Minekun is asexual. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to let you go for now and enjoy. And I will publish the reading list in the BL. I don't think it should be in BL Rex, but I will put probably in the lobby. So it will be there. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the CitrusCon.